Good morning. Want to continue this morning. 2 weeks ago, we talked about contentment, specifically looking at Philippians 4 and Paul, and talking about, I've come to a place where when I have lots, when I have nothing, when I'm full, when I'm starving, when I'm staying in a rich person's home, or when I'm in prison, I'm good. I'm good no matter what. Last week we derailed and went somewhere else for a week, and today we're going to continue. We're going to talk about busyness today. Next week is going to bring the busyness and the contentment together, and we're going to talk about identity. But today, in talking about busyness, I'm always reminded of the Shawshank Redemption, which is an amazing movie. And you have Brooks at the end, after Brooks has gotten out, and he says, the world went and got itself in a big dang hurry, or something to that effect. The world went and got itself in a big dang hurry. And when we look at this, one of the striking things is, from personal experience, regardless if you hear it across all age ranges, all demographics, anything you can imagine. The answer to how are you doing is what? Busy. What's going on, man? I'm busy all the time. Like, how are you? Busy. What have you got going on? Man, everything is just busy. Two ways that we see the extent of this are, there was a guy, he's another Church of Christ minister, and he and his wife and family were helping sponsor a guy from Haiti where they had done some mission trips. He did not know English, knew French, and learning English here in the United States and going to work and college and things like that, they started noticing that when anyone would ask him, how are you, trying to be polite and make conversation, he would say, busy. We're like, well, he really doesn't have anything going on yet. He's trying to get into school, and he doesn't have a job yet because he's still learning the language. He's not busy. And notice this was his answer to everything, and they finally kind of talked to him about it. He had no idea what busy meant. He just knew that that's what everyone responded to that question. And so he just thought that was what you were supposed to say. That was the English answer to that question. Busy. No idea what it meant, but that's what you say. We talk about this in our kids, regardless of how old they are. How are your kids? They're busy. They're busy. We have largely the parents of a lot of our kids now were, very firmly in the latchkey generation. You went home and you let yourself in and let yourself out, and you had, 2.5, 3, even 3.5 hours every day on your own, on our own, unsupervised and unscheduled. And we have kind of dubbed now as the hour-by-hour generation. I read a scathing article from a guy who's in the throes of this himself. And he said, from 4 o'clock to 5, from 5 to 6, from 6 to 7, from 7 to 8, we sacrifice our children's soul in the name of busyness. Because here's the other thing that we recognize. When people say, how are you, and we answer busy, you ever notice it's not really a complaint? Most of the time, when we say we're busy, it's a badge of honor. It means you're needed and you're necessary, and you're just so caught up in everything, and you're involved in everything, and we glorify being busy. to the point that we try to make sure that we stay that way. The interesting thing about it is that, if you've seen the cartoon about anxiety, it says, my superpower is I can jump to the worst conclusion in 1.2 seconds. We oftentimes, we can jump from A to Z, skipping or ignoring every other step in between. We hear people talk about, we have people working both ends of the spectrum. They're taking care of kids or what should be grandkids, and they're taking care of parents and everything in between. And we hear people talking about when they're taking care of their elderly parents, when they're looking at retirement communities or nursing homes or whatever the case is. It's really funny to hear some people talk about how they're picking that and choosing that, and they want to make sure that wherever that place is, that the people can stay constantly busy, that they can always have something going. Because if they don't always have something going, then they'll be sad, and if they get sad, then they'll be miserable, and if they are miserable, then they'll begrudge the kids, and if begrudge the kids, then they will pass on before they want them to. And then with kids, it's, well, we have to keep them busy. They have to play 17 different sports, and they have to travel to 18 different counties for the Southeast Midwest racket thing tourney, because even though 1% of people who play D1 college go on to play pro, your little Johnny and Susie are going to play pro. They're not. Mine are definitely not. That's just not what it is. But we do that because, and you see this in so many conversations and so many writings, we do this because, well, if they're not busy every second of the day, then, if the boy's not busy every second of the day, then they are, so-and-so is going to start first base instead of them, or so-and-so is going to be quarterback, instead of them, and they're not going to make the team, and then they're going to be a horrible person, and then they're going to shoot up a school. Like those are the conclusions that we jump to, trying to make sure that everything stays as busy as humanly possible. Here's the thing. Princeton did an experiment, one of their better ones. Princeton did a thing where they took students, a large group of students that were upper grad theology majors, and they would bring them in one at a time, unbeknownst to anyone else, into the dean's office, and half of the group, they said, so they told all of them, you're going across campus to this other building to give a lecture of sorts. You're going to give a talk to underclassmen. Half the group, they said, you're going to give a talk on what is theology and why you're studying it. The other half of the group, they said, you're going to go give a presentation on the Good Samaritan, the story of the Good Samaritan. And then half of each of those groups, so mixed together, they told half of them, hey, you're pretty much already late. The class has started, we need you over there now. And the other half, they said, hey, you got plenty of time. It's next block, get over there when you can, and then they'll give you instructions on what to do. It was a psychology experiment. In between the two buildings, they had a guy set up who, looked homeless, looked like just having a no good, terrible, very awful, bad day, not feeling well, head between his knees, on the sidewalk, sitting on the ground, planted in between the two buildings. Their thought was that, of course, the people that they said, you're giving a presentation on the Good Samaritan, will stop and help this guy, and the people who are giving a presentation on theology may pass by. What they found was that made no difference at all. What they were giving the talk on made no difference whatsoever. What made the difference was if they were told they were in a hurry or not. I think it was about, of the sample size, about 5% of the people who said they were in a hurry stopped and said anything to the person at all. Whereas over 60% of the people who said you have lots of time stopped to help this guy. When we get so busy, we miss out on opportunities that God is leading us to. We miss opportunities that God is putting in front of our face. We don't hear God speak. There's another cartoon. It shows a sheep laying on a layout bed at the beach, and they're holding an iPad, and they have their headphones on, and it's got, the shepherd in the background yelling and screaming, and the sheep go, I have no idea why I never hear from the shepherd anymore. When we get busy, we miss it. When I get busy, last week, I joked and I said, God called an audible on Thursday and was like, no, here's what you're actually talking about. When I get busy, I just don't hear the audible. I'll just preach whatever I was going to preach on. But I won't hear what God is saying. When we get busy, we don't hear God. We don't see God. We don't see opportunities that God is putting in front of us when we are too busy. When we're too busy to do anything, when we're so overscheduled that we can't do anything else. Then we run into we miss out things with the body. We miss out on things with the family because we're so busy that we're scheduled on Wednesday night, or we're scheduled on, it's bled into Sunday morning, or little Johnny or little Susie has to travel because they're going to be the next Peyton Manning, and so we have to travel on Sunday or whatever it is. Or we get to the point that our bodies are literally just so busy at any age that we just crash and need rest, and so we stay away from the body, we stay away from the family, we stay away from our friends and family members that build us up and encourage us. We miss out on opportunities at any point during the week that God is leading us to or pointing us to. It's interesting, that was the whole point of the Sabbath. When God is teaching his people of the Sabbath and he says, you'll work 6 days, no more. You'll work 6 days, no more. It was even planting. You'll plant so many years and then you'll give the ground rest. None of that is for God. None of that's for God. Taking the Sabbath, we have to keep the Sabbath holy because that's what God demands. We have to rest because God needs that? No, God doesn't need that. That doesn't do anything for God. God knows it does something for us. God knows that we are in need of rest, that our souls are in need of rest, that our souls are in need of downtime and time to listen and hear. Listen and hear what God has to say. Listen to hear where God is pointing us, where God is directing us, what God is telling us. But when we're so busy, we can't hear it. If you, let me give you a few verses here you can turn to. Matthew 11 is kind of the go-to chapter and verse for this, because it's Jesus talking, and he's describing what following Jesus is. Not who or how, but what following Jesus is. And in Matthew 11, 28 through 30, it says, verse 28, it says, "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Heavy laden, burdened down, carrying too much, and carrying too much that doesn't matter. We're stacking things on us that just don't matter. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, heavily burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Jesus talks a lot about how hard it is to follow Jesus. Last week we talked about just what the narrow gate meant, what that was. That was, loving others, loving neighbor. That was the narrow gate, and that's what was so hard. But once you get there, once you get Jesus for who Jesus says Jesus is, once you understand God for who God says God is, the result is rest. The result is an unburdened soul. God knows that rest is so important to our souls, like unbelievably so. That was the point of the Sabbath. That was the point of all of these things, was to give us the rest that the Creator, the one who made us, knows is so unbelievably important to us. And when Jesus talks about this isn't a new concept. In Exodus, when they were leaving, he says, my presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. Psalm 127 says, it is in vain that you rise up early and go late to rest, eating the bread of anxious toil. For he gives to his beloved sleep. We see Jesus taking rest. And sometimes it looks really weird reading it. It does. Sometimes it looks really weird when you haven't read the whole story and seen the seamlessness of Father, of Son, of Holy Spirit. We see Jesus being chased by these huge crowds and him just trying to get away. We see, the time that he's walking on the water was not only did he have to get away from the crowd, he had to get away from his disciples. He said, look, I'm going to hide from the crowd. I need you guys to go across the water. It's like when you send your kids on an errand that doesn't really matter. Like, this is what Jesus does. He doesn't need them to do anything. I just need you to go away for a little bit. And Jesus goes off on his own. Sometimes it's even wilder to read because you see Jesus is healing these people, and he's healing and healing. It says there's a great multitude left to heal, and Jesus goes away. And then we see when Jesus starts talking about the coming of the Holy Spirit, he says, no, trust me. Like, you can't even imagine how good this is. Because with Jesus, with me here, I can minister to you. And I can sit with you at your house. But if I'm sitting with you at your house, I'm not sitting with you at yours. But when the Holy Spirit comes, everyone is at the same table. Everyone has the same access all the time at the same time. Psalm 37 says, be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Fret not yourself over the one who prospers in his way, over the man who carries out evil devices. Be still. One of my favorites in this is Isaiah. Isaiah is, here I am, send me. Which is this, sounds like this great, wonderful thing, and stick it on bumper stickers and t-shirts, but the job was awful that he was, here I am, send me. It was not a job anybody wanted to sign up for. I'm going to send you, and you're going to preach your whole life, and you're going to say amazing things. I'm even going to tell you what to say, but nobody's ever going to listen to you. Here I am, send me. To that group, to God's people, in Isaiah 30, God says this. He says, for this is what the Lord God says, the Holy One of Israel. In returning and in rest you shall be saved. In quietness and in trust shall be your strength, but you are having none of it. The self-imposed busyness that we all put on ourselves, When I told Mark Spann what I was preaching, he said, that's a little ridiculous coming from, one of the busiest people that I know, for you to get up and say something like that. I know. Right, note to self. Right, I'm preaching my sermon, you're just getting to listen. The self-imposed busyness that we all do isn't necessary, and it is new. we have, the world went and got itself in a big dang hurry. This hasn't always been the case. And every new piece of technology that we have, as I had a complete freak out this morning because I am a bit of a Bible collector, but I have this one Bible. I have this one Bible, and it is my Bible, and I have written in, it's got margins, and I've written in everything and underlined everything and made notes and sermon notes and listening to other speakers. Like, it is the world to me, and I always take it home on Friday for the weekend, and I couldn't find it this weekend, so I thought, I must have left it in my office. Got to my office this morning, it's not in there, so I had this complete freak out. Erin's talking me off the ledge. She thinks it's at home. So here, technology, right? I'm using a phone this morning. But here's the thing, with every new piece of technology, from the cotton gin, right? Like, every new piece of technology was designed, and the promise and purpose of every new piece of technology we have ever created in the history of mankind was to make life easier and to give us more time off and more rest. And I don't think anyone in here would argue that it does the exact opposite. Our digital technology just ensures that we never have any time off. It means that when we wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, we can do emails from work. I don't think I have ever sent an email to Ray that hasn't been answered. It doesn't matter what time of day it is, and then he reminds me that I generally answer back whatever time of day it is. Like, it doesn't give us rest. It doesn't give us relaxation at any age. It's Ecclesiastes. We work ourselves into a frenzy, into a toil, on a gerbil wheel. Meaningless, meaningless, meaningless. It is all meaningless. Given the author, that carries a whole lot of weight. He's like, no, really, trust me, I've tried everything. Meaningless, meaningless. We work ourselves into toils and fits in ourselves and with our parents and with our grandparents and with our kids and with our grandkids. And God says, okay, but for what? But for what? Last week we talked about people who had dedicated their whole life to something, but it not necessarily being Jesus. And we talked about these, how we as Christians have this crazy ability to drag people away from who Jesus is way better than anyone in the world ever could. And unfortunately, a few days after that, we got a prime example. There was the shooting in the bar, the nightclub in California, which is near Pepperdine. And there were a bunch of Pepperdine students there. There were a dozen people were killed in the shooting. There were a bunch of Pepperdine students there. One of the girls who died was a Pepperdine student. And the web admin, the digital admin for Pepperdine said it was her hardest day of her entire job, and she had to call in all these extra people to help to hide all of the just vile, venomous comments on Pepperdine's page from Pepperdine's alumni about, from preachers around the country posting things like, well, if they were Christians, what were they doing at a bar? Dancing and having a drink would be my guess. If they were real Christians, they wouldn't have been there in the first place. So we see this as a thing, and we built and we built and we built, and we talked about in Matthew, Jesus saying there will be people who will say, Lord, Lord, and how I had always read that, and I had always thought that these were people, at the last minute, trying to put on a performance, right? Like, oh, hey, I see you now. But how I've come to the place that, no, I don't think that's what it's talking about. I think it's talking about people who have dedicated their life to a building or an institution or a social club, but have never really met Jesus. And if we're not careful, we can do that. We can work and work and work and toil and toil and toil and start organizations and do things and meet people and build buildings and whatever the case is, and then look like the people there that Jesus is talking about that say, Lord, didn't we work? Didn't we work? Didn't we do all these things? Didn't we use your name? We did all these things? But you never knew me. But you didn't know me. Working for the sake of work is not something that we're after. I've got a friend who made a joke. He said the Puritans made work holy. He said somehow forgetting that his work is punishment in the garden. But we want our time and our focus and our energy to be on what Jesus is talking about, which is people. We want our time and our focus and energy to be on things that God is telling us to have our time and energy and focus upon. And it's we can have our time and our energy and our focus and our entire lives on something that's not bad. We can have it focused and preoccupied on something that's not bad. Wanting activity is not bad. Youth sports are not bad. Girls Inc. is not bad. Sports aren't bad. Boy Scouts aren't bad. But we can allow ourselves to get to a place where if we make something the center of our universe, then it will be the center of our universe. Where your treasure is, so there is your heart. So I'm not even talking about dedicating your life to drugs. I'm talking about we can dedicate our lives to something beautiful and noble, but we can still miss Jesus if we dedicate our life to something that isn't Jesus. So I just want to challenge me as a friend and as a husband and as a parent and as a youth leader and preacher and whatever, like me and all the aspects of my life, to look and examine and try to be at a place where I am focusing on Jesus. And that I'm teaching Emily and Paisley to focus on Jesus. That I'm teaching them that your life shouldn't be at a place where you say, gosh, I'd love to help, but I'm just so busy. I'd love to go and help you with that, but I'm so busy. I'd love to pray for you on that, but I'm going to say I'm going to pray for you on that, but honestly I'm so busy that I'm just going to forget and not even do it. We want to teach our kids, and sometimes we want to teach our parents, and sometimes we want to teach our grandparents, and sometimes the grandparents need to be the one teaching the grandkids what's important in life and where our focus should be, and our focus should be on Jesus, wherever He is directing that. We want to have enough margin in our life that we can see and we can hear the shepherd. My sheep know my voice. We want to know His voice and live in such a way that we have enough margin in our life to hear it and respond. So this morning, if you need rest, I pray for rest for you. I pray that all of us would take just a step back and take an honest look at where our treasure is, so that then we can know where our heart is. Because if we start with where is my heart, our answer is always going to be right. If I ask, Levi, where's your heart? Oh, well, it's with Jesus. But if I ask, Levi, where is your time and where is your treasure, I may sometimes in life get a different answer. So that's why Jesus words it in that way. So start with, take a step back and look where your treasure is. And then just see, what are areas of my life that I can create margin for me? What are areas of my life that I can create some margin for my grandkids or my kids? What are areas of my life that our family can create margin? We have traded family dinners around a table for, fast food bags kicking out the door to practice. And it's not like it's not like something is necessarily magical. I genuinely do believe that sharing food with someone, there is really something spiritual to that. I think there's a whole lot of support for that. But the point, what we got out of family meals was just a few moments of margin, a few moments of time where someone feels that they're not rushed so much that they can actually tell you how their day was. Sometimes we complain, we'll ask someone how your day was, and they're like, fine. But sometimes we ask people how their day was, like, well, how was your day? Well, all they can say is fine. They know we're not really interested in what the answer is. We're just giving the token response, busy, 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 because that's what you say. If you need some margin, I want to pray for you for margin, and you can ask the rest of the family or someone else in the family to pray for you for margin. If you want to pray that you know you're just in this particular season of your life, or this week in your life, or this 24-hour period in your life, or this season, whatever it is, that you're not hearing God like you know you have at other times in your life. I want to pray for you for that, and for us to recognize that that's probably because we have gotten ourselves in too big of a hurry. God isn't speaking any less, we're just listening less. The noise is so loud. Busy is loud, so loud, that we drown out parents and grandparents and kids and friends and nieces and nephews and God. It's just so loud that we have trouble hearing anything else. If this morning you want to come and ask for prayers to just hear God's voice, if this morning you want to come and let us talk to you about who God is, what baptism is, how you can enter into the family of God, that is literally why we're here, and we would love to do that with you. If we can pray for you, if we can talk to you about baptism, about Jesus, about how Jesus offers rest, because that's what Jesus is offering. Rest in contentment within purpose, within Jesus. Let us do that with you and for you as Mark leads us in a song.